Hey there, good morning, my friends. I want to talk to you about a very important subject this morning. And I want to start with talking about one of my favorite historical figures, George Washington. George Washington was the man who established the American Republic. He led the Revolutionary Army against the British Empire, and he served as the first president of the United States. And in an era of brilliant men, Washington was not the deepest thinker. He never wrote a book or even a long essay, unlike contemporaries like George Mason or Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, and etc. But Washington incarnated the ideas of the Republic in his own persona. Think about other great military commanders and revolutionary leaders before and even after Washington. People like Caesar and Cromwell and Napoleon and Lenin. They all seized power they had won, and they held on to that power until death or military defeat. Washington abhorred the idea of kingship, even for himself. The writer Gary Wills called him a virtuoso of resignations. And Joseph Ellis in Founding Brothers states that Washington could be trusted with power because he was so ready to give it up. He gave up power not once, but twice at the end of the Revolutionary War. When he resigned his military commission and returned to his home in Mount Vernon, and again at the end of his second term as president, when he refused entreaties to seek a third term, give the last word to Washington's great adversary, King George III, that highlights how he was not pursuing and desirous to maintain his control on the nation. The king asked his American painter, Benjamin West, what Washington would do after winning independence. And West replied, "They say he'll return to his farm." He heard the words of the king like this: "If he does that," the incredulous monarch said, "he will be the greatest man in the world." And so Washington became known as the man who would not be king. So respected was Washington that at his death in 1799, the British fleet fired a 20-gun salute in memory of a valiant former enemy. He was greatly respected of men because of his restrained power and his willful humility. Washington leaves a great legacy because he lived by unwavering principles, not the least of which was his humility and refusal to hold on to control or power. Legacy. That's what I want to talk about. Have you considered yours? I've come today to ask a very poignant, straightforward question. What do you want written on your tombstone? What do you want to be remembered for when your life on this earth has passed? It's a question that should matter to you, and I believe there are four requirements for a great legacy. Number one, you have to live with purpose, purposeful living. Number two, ambitious discipline is required. Number three, dedicated focus is an element of legacy. And number four, you have to have core principles, and it will most certainly not happen by accident, a great legacy. If you want to be remembered for something great, you need to begin living with intentionality right now. John Maxwell said it like this: desire is the currency of life. It is what you have attained. If you're going to leave a legacy, you have to desire it and you have to work for it. Before concluding the video today, a word of caution. You have to guard against distractions that seek to replace your legacy. The enemy of your success employs distractions in order to tame your passion. Little things are employed to distract you, hidden traps and snares. Why? Because great sins can frighten us away, where little snares entangle us. It's easier to escape the huntsman's arrow than it is the crafty lure. William H. Henson tells why the animal trainers carry a stool when they enter a cage of lions. And I quote, "They have their whips, of course, and their pistols are at their sides, but invariably," he says, "they also carry a tool." Henson says it is the most important tool of the trainer. And I quote again, he said, "He holds the stool, the trainer, by the back, and he thrusts the legs toward the face of that wild animal." Those who know maintain that the animal tries to focus on all four legs at one time. And in the attempt to focus on all four, a kind of paralysis overwhelms the animal, and it becomes tame and weak and disabled because its attention is fragmented. To leave a great legacy, you must be aware of paralysis caused by distractions. Anointing is not enough. Divine calls will not keep you. Talent is insufficient. And even knowledge by itself is not capable of carrying you through to a great legacy. I'll close saying that Samson was greatly anointed of God, and King Saul was talented and stood head and shoulders above all the men of Israel, and Solomon was the wisest man of his times. All were divinely called, but reading the closing accounts of their lives, we understand their lack of relationship with God brought about a spiritual demise, and distractions won the day. Lamentably, the words of David could be engraved on each of their tombstones. Oh, how are the mighty fallen. Finally, today, consider the Israelites in the wilderness. The elder generation didn't make it to the land of promise. Instead, strewn along the wilderness were the tombstones of a generation of promise. Tombstones in the wilderness. Why? Because the memory of deliverance wasn't enough to keep them destined for promise. Beware the paralysis of distractions by remembering the requirements of legacy, purposeful living, ambitious discipline, dedicated focus, and core principles. Here's a few points to ponder as you approach the weekend about legacy. Number one, have I identified what I want my legacy to be? And number two, what am I doing now to establish that legacy? Number three, what are some distractions hindering my legacy? And four, what are my daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly habits that will help me meet my legacy requirements? I love you. Let's pursue a great legacy together. God bless you.